true north? Like, what gets you up in the morning and then makes you feel good throughout the day, and how do you keep on that path?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think what gets me up in the morning. Start this again. I think what gets me up in the morning is just the ability to do something I love and use the time I have to promote change in as much as I can. I want to use, if I could, every second I have on this earth to drive inclusion, drive diversity, drive social change, create a more socially just world. And that's really what gets me up in the morning. I'm the kind of person, I don't really have guiding principles, but I hate wasting time and being bored. So I want to
That's
use,
obvious.
yeah, right? So I really want to use the time that I have to promote as much change as I can to make sure that everybody can have these experiences I am having. I mean, I really want everybody to feel like they belong to, especially, my work is focused on sport, where there's, a lot of groups that are being discriminated against, are being excluded, underrepresented, marginalized. And I don't want that. I want to use my time on this earth to drive as much change as I can, to use sport to drive that change, to drive change in sport, and use the power of sport to drive social justice, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So on a closing note, what I would like to do is have you think about, has there been in particular a person that that's really been able to make a meaningful change in their life, or been inspired by your work that you know about, without disclosing, anything personal or whatever, but what it feels like for you to know that, because we've been talking academically and in abstract and in theory, but now I want to bring it down to grass, rubber meets the road. Who,
yeah.
Has someone ever told you that you helped them, or it made a difference, that made a difference to you?
Yeah, it's actually really interesting. Those are the moments that give me life and give me energy. When I have somebody reach out like years later and say, you know what, this program you created or this thing we did back then, it really helped me like find my voice, find confidence in the work that I do. And since a lot of my work is focused on DEI work in college athletics, college is such a transformative time for most of us. You are young, most often you are first time away from your parents, you are finding yourself. So that's, I think, what keeps drawing me to the higher ed space, that I know it's such a transformative space for young people specifically. And it's such an important space to center diversity and inclusion and inclusive leadership. So one of the things we did at Bowling Green, was part of the We Are One Team program, was creating a leadership program focused on inclusive leadership for athletes specifically. And just this past year, obviously, when we were witnessing, the horrific murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, our Black and brown brothers and sisters, non-binary, queer folk. I had a lot of the folks who went through that program message me and say, me being in that program, it really helped me step up as an ally. Now 2 years, 3 years later, it really helped me use my voice to fight for racial justice, for social justice. So those are the moments generally that I know that I'm doing good work, that my work is being recognized, even though 90% of the time you don't see the direct result of your work. But those are really the moments where I know, you're on the right track, keep doing what you're doing. It's good work, it's meaningful work, it's impacting people. And that's, really important. And on a more personal note, some of the athletes and the students I've worked with have just become really good friends. And one of them in particular, he was a football player at Bowling Green, and I will never forget, he took one of my classes. He was in We Are One Team, and one time I just, asked to talk to him, and I said, you are a brilliant student. Like, you have your brilliant mind, the heart in the right space. Have you ever thought about like working with me on this and maybe applying for grad school? And he was very, kind of flustered at first, kind of tried to leave the conversation. And then I get to my office like not even 10 minutes later, and I have this 2-page email in my mailbox saying that, for 21 years, nobody ever viewed him for anything other than a football player. And nobody ever, saw anything in him other than being the football player. And he's one of my best friends now. We've been close friends. He's done amazing things. And that's really what's at the core of my work, I think, is finding looking at people beyond the boxes that we try to put them in and helping them see that in themselves and find that passion and turn that passion into action. And he is such a good example of that. And that's really, earlier we talked about my guiding principles. That's really what drives my work, to help people overcome those boxes, those barriers, overcome the systemic barriers that put them into those boxes, and help them find their passion and turn that into action. And if that action is focused on social justice, that's even better.
Better, yeah.